Yeah.
But maybe we'll see.
Just got back from Sweden yesterday, and their summer there consisted of rain and cool temperatures. And of course, I packed as if I was going to summer in Portugal. Took my flip-flops, and that was it. All right. Welcome to Cascais Meditation and Spiritual Musings. Nice to be back with you this week after a week off. And I just returned from a retreat in Sweden for 5 days, where I spent about 10 to 12 hours talking and running my mouth. And so I'm a little bit tired of talking, but I'm still excited to share with you today. The title for this week is Infinite Worlds of Worry, an opportunity to explore the adorable innocence of the mind's determination to find something to worry about. So we'll have an opportunity to explore that and bring a good amount of compassion to the mind's insanity and overall just relax. We'll start with a 10 or 15 minute guided meditation, and from there we will share some insight and wisdom. So let's just relax. Hey, Chris. Thank you. This meditation is going to extend an invitation to let go of worry. And as we rest here in this space, we're going to acknowledge the most simple of things. We are going to invite ourselves into presence. And the doorway to such a relaxation is to acknowledge the movement of the mind, and yet also acknowledge what's actually happening. And in this, we can come home to what's real. We can honor the breath that breathes. in every moment you notice the mind wanders, it's simply an opportunity to come back to this moment. A gentle acknowledgement of, oh yeah, here I am. We can make contact with a sincerity within ourselves that can ask, is there anything to worry about right now? Yes, sure, the mind can imagine many things tomorrow. The mind can try and bring yesterday into today. But yet, in looking at what's real, maybe we can recognize that right now, there's no need to worry. And so even if it is just for this moment, we can gift ourselves a space that is free of worry. We can finally breathe. Please see that this is a gift that you give to yourself. Permission to be present. Permission to be still. Permission to not know. Let's recognize that this moment needs nothing. Everything that this moment might need is already given. Even the breath needs nothing, as the breath is already given. In order for you to be here right now, nothing is needed. In this, we can recognize the aliveness of what you are, the truth of what you are, is abundantly taken care of right now. And of course, this has been the truth your entire life. The realness of what you are taken care of. And we can see very clearly that as you rest in this moment right now, what you are is whole, is complete, not missing anything. To such a degree, we can look back on our lives and see that there was never anything to worry about. You've always been taken care of. In order for you to be here right now, you have gotten everything you needed. This invites us to connect with a trust in that which has provided, a trust in that which has carried you through, a trust in life itself. And as an energy of worry might look into the future, we can recognize that this worry simply projects limitation, afraid that something might go wrong. And in this moment, we can acknowledge the truth of the matter. And that is, if there's worry, we're just scared. In the most adorable way, we are scared that life might stop being a miracle. That is super cute. notice the adorable quality of this worry. A worry that imagines you might be separate from life. And in this space, we can extend a love, a kindness, a compassion for that fear. The fear that imagines yourself to be separate, that imagines yourself to be disconnected from this miracle. And we can see throughout our whole lives, it's always been an innocent misunderstanding. Ultimately, to find out there is nothing to worry about. And so we can relax, which is not to push away worry, but to hold space for it, knowing that it's just a misunderstanding about what's real. You can see that if we push away the worry, we're simply worrying about our worry. No need to fear the fear. We can acknowledge its presence and say, yes, we've been here many, many times before. And quite obviously, this is yet another opportunity to trust life. Okay. The disclaimer today is a reminder that this is not an opportunity to judge ourselves. It is an opportunity to see the adorable nature of being human, an opportunity to observe our humanness and allow it to point us to something more true. And this is something that I noticed as I just finished the retreat in Sweden. How so easy it is to hear these things and to assume you're doing something wrong. Like talking about worry, you can see it's insanity, that it's not necessary. Then we start worrying about our worry, which only compounds the issue and makes it worse. And I like this part in the meditation where we said that we don't need to push away the worry. We don't need to try and get rid of it. We can really just hold space for it and acknowledge its presence. There's a great gentleness to this, to allowing oneself to be as they are, to hold space for whatever is moving inside of you. You can notice this, that any movement that tries to get rid of worry, to push it away, is like a worry about worry. And I always like to look at these things as it pertains to relationship, and you can see the play of a child who might be worrying, and they go to their mother, and you can see the mother doesn't say, "Get away from me with your worry." The mother says, "Oh, come here. It's okay. Everything's fine." And this is the great opportunity in our own lives with the relationship with ourselves, is to extend a love to that which might be scared inside of us. The title of this session is Infinite Worlds of Worry. And I playfully hope to expose the unending potential for worry, and somehow to see that it's all the same worry. In such a way that you can be sitting in your house and you can find 100 things to worry about in your house. Looking around at cracks in the walls, wondering about paying bills to keep the lights on. On and on and on you could go. And then you could step outside and look at your neighborhood and find 100 things to worry about. Are the neighbors doing it right? Will this happen? And then you could look at your country and find 100 things to worry about. Then your planet, then your solar system, then your galaxy. Just notice that as you're in the present moment, there is the infinite potential to worry. It's unending. And I invite us to recognize this throughout our lives. And maybe it's as true for you as it is for me. I find that I've never actually figured out my worry. The things I worried about, I never actually figured them out. If anything, I just exhausted myself into a space of surrender. Only to look back and realize, oh, I didn't have to worry. And it points to a profound recognition about the nature of what you are worried about. And I think it helps here to get profoundly honest, because the mind can create so many stories about what we might be worried about. And as I look through my past experience throughout my life, and I ask myself, okay, what was this about? What was I so worried about? And the discovery that I come to is that I was worried that I wouldn't make it to this moment right now. I wouldn't make it to this moment and be whole and complete. And to rest in this stillness and to get profoundly clear about what's real and what's true, and to see my inherent wholeness, to see that I'm not missing anything. I can see that there wasn't a need to worry. And in this, I recognize that throughout that journey, throughout the play of worrying, nothing has ever gone how I thought it was going to go. It's quite amazing to see that life has moved in its spontaneous nature, bringing to me opportunities and experiences to learn and grow, to love, to expand. And it's beautiful to see that that was all beyond my own doing. It wasn't up to me. And to recognize that there's a miracle of life that's unfolding, and to see that it has never gone how I thought it should go, how I wanted it to go, but yet it has gone in such a way that exposed a deeper discovery. In so many ways, life continues to show me the real prize. And in recognizing that life isn't ever going to go how I think it should go, I can stop trying to make it go a certain way. This is the invitation to give yourself back to life. And as we've explored many times in these sessions, that in some way or another life is, or spirituality is inviting us to see the nature of what you really are while letting go of the illusion of what you are. To see your inherent wholeness, to see your connectedness with all things, to see the divinity of your nature. All of which is seen as we release the illusions of ourselves, who we think we are, who we want others to think we are. Images of ourselves to be captured in the future. As all of these things melt away, we make contact with something that's actually real, actually alive. And the funny thing about this is, as I examine my worry from yesterday and beyond, the worry only pertains to who I think I am. Maintaining some image of a character. And naturally, as one sees more and more the illusionary nature of this character we believe ourselves to be, quite naturally you see there's less and less to worry about. In this, the only thing I was ever worried about is that I might lose who I think I am. You know, and it might be an extreme space of discovery, but I notice inside of myself this profound openness to just see what happens, rather than worrying if it's going to go this way or that way, which is all wrapped around who I think I am. There's this natural curiosity that gives life back to life and says, let's see. Let's see what life wants to do. And in this relaxation, in this space of peace, this openness that invites life to be life, very, very gently, I invite you to recognize the violence in what might be worry. We can notice the agitation of being worried, the frustration of being worried, the pain of being worried. And notice that in that space, in that pain, there's something inside of ourselves that wants to move in a violent way, wants to withhold freedom from others, wants to tell life, don't be life, be what I want. This violence starts placing all sorts of demands on life, on others, on yourself. We can see the stressful nature of this worry. Almost as if this stressful nature of worry doesn't allow yourself to breathe freely. This stressful worry says you can't be present. This stressful worry says there might be something wrong with you. This stressful worry is trying to be God. I don't know about you, but I recognize a profound invitation to let go of the worry. My goodness. To acknowledge that maybe life knows what it's doing. And in this, I invite you to see that throughout your life, your profound moments of breakthrough, your profound moments of discovery that have opened you up to a profound love, have all been birthed through your expressions of worry. There is this fear that thought life didn't know what it was doing, and we resisted, we ran away, we pushed away. We fought against the flow, only to ultimately realize and look back and say, oh, okay, now I see. And I just invite you to remember back in how convinced the mind was that life was going wrong. how convinced we were of the mind's argument, of the mind's belief in something to worry about. And I find this fascinating, the mind's capacity to believe its content, to believe the idea that we know something that we don't really know. And you can see that in a way, this is what gives birth to worry, is you try and convince yourself that you know something that you don't really know. And this goes into something that I'm sure we've spoken about many times, but the idea that we are worried if something's going to be positive or negative. We are worried if something's going to be good or bad. As if there was such a thing. And just notice this as it relates to watching the play of ego. Notice how everything we might think we want to happen in the future, how in a way we want it for our egoic self. We want it so that we can hold on to something. We want it so that we can not see what we're afraid of. We might call those things positive. I think that's super fascinating. When in reality, those things that we might have pushed away or called negative have given birth to some of the most positive discoveries inside of ourselves. And we can look back and see that, oh, what I thought was negative wasn't actually negative. And likewise, what I thought I wanted, what I thought was positive, didn't turn out to be positive. In this is a profound realization that I don't really know. You can see that this is like a giving your life back to life. Trusting yourself to life. And if anything, that's the ultimate invitation of spirituality, is to come back to the present moment and be. And the only way you can truly be present, to truly be, is to let go of what's not here, which is what may or may not come, how things might or might not go. This is the real liberation. The liberation is found in your ability to allow things to be what they are. The liberation is in your ability to be present. And in this, you will watch life continue to unfold and recognize a joyful comedy that sees life knows exactly what it's doing. Life has been doing this for some time now. It's got it figured out. In recognizing the infinite opportunity to worry, I invite you to see that there really isn't anything to worry about. You are free to worry. You are allowed to worry. But how's it going? Notice that it only robs you of the present moment. It only gives birth to some form of violence. It only makes it impossible for love to flow. Okay, that's all I got for you.
Would you create a distinction between worry and concern?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, playfully.
They're different.
Yeah, yeah. The difference between worry and concern. I think concern is, for me, something that's asking for my attention. Worry, for me, is really about a fear of not getting something in the future.
It's because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Actually, what do you actually mean by that word?
Worry? Yeah.
Yeah.
How might we define worry? Definitely an internal agitation that feels like something's missing or that you might miss something in the future. Maybe one way of describing it, it's almost a belief that love could be lost in such a way that the one thing you crave the most, you might not get it. And so we get worried about that. And for concern, I see it's something that asks, wait, what's really going on here?
It's a bit more practical.
Yeah. It's almost like the difference between discernment and judgment.
So worry would be more of an ego thing.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And concern is still an ego thing.
Could be.
But in a healthy way.
Yeah. And honestly, we can only know within ourselves, for ourselves.
The difference.
Yeah, like it's just a degree of how honest are you with yourself. Yeah. Like the difference between judgment and discernment. You can see this in the play of like a car battery. It has a positive charge and a negative charge. And the car battery, in order to function, has to have positive charge and the negative. It has to in order to work. The judgment says positive is better than the negative.
Okay.
And so what you do is you put the clamps on positive because you don't like the negative and you get a shock, right? You try and say that one's better than the other. And the discernment is simply to see that, oh, there's a positive and a negative charge. And they both have equal value. It's like discernment looks at the whole picture and can see the differences.
But you're not saying that worry and concern have an equal value, are you? I don't.
No, not necessarily. Other than worry is a great teacher. And so it offers that sort of value in the way that physical pain is a teacher, emotional pain is a teacher. And so there's a great value there.
But you can turn it around, can't you? You can recognize the worry, face it,
Right.
and actually make friends with it.
Yeah.
And then turn it around into a concern.
Yeah.
And be practical about stuff that you think you're worried about.
Totally. Yeah, like when I find myself getting worried, there's a pain that comes with it. There's like an internal alarm. And I like just getting radically honest about what I'm worried about. Because again, the mind makes up excuses. It says, oh, well, I'm worried about this, this, and this, and this. But really, there's something much deeper. And what I see is that my worry is afraid of losing who I think I am. Losing my sense of control. Losing
your ego.
Exactly.
Which is afraid of death.
Exactly. And so the more I see that, oh, this is just about my ego, I can relax a little bit and realize this isn't even up to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if something needs my attention, then that's like an opportunity. It's like, okay, well, I can address this. I can be present for this. But it certainly doesn't have to be a problem.
And then the other thing you said that brought a smile to my face is the whole cosmic joke thing.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is.
Yes. Beautiful cosmic joke. And part of that cosmic joke is that there's nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
Yeah. You see how cute that is? I find that to be so incredibly cute, where you are allowed to worry. It's totally fine.
But there's no need.
There's no need.
Yeah.
There's no need. And that can sound incredibly insensitive, but the more you see what's going on, it's just
really
hilarious.
Difficult to realize.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. Well, it's like the more you're hypnotized by the illusion of ego, it's very difficult to see these things because we want so bad the ego. And then the ego hears these things and tries to use it to benefit the ego.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think it's also tied very tightly with frustration.
Yeah.
So when you're in that cycle of worry, it comes in hand with this frustration. I think the tendency is to want to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, do something.
Yeah.
To fix it. And I find that I've never been able to fix it.
Right, so you're saying the solution is not to actually do anything.
Yeah. I would say be open to that. Be open that the solution isn't about doing at all. There's a famous line you might have heard before called "Be still." Be still and know. And it's amazing. It's kind of like when we come and we sit in this space of inquiry. Do you notice the potential for things to be resolved without doing anything? It's like the mind gets so busy, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this. But when you just be still and listen, what's really going on here? These things start to drop away. It's like, oh, I don't need to do this, and I don't need to do this. I can actually relax. And I find in that space of relaxation is where I find a more sincere guidance. Yes, practically it looks like there's things to do. But I find that if we're not coming from a space of stillness, if we're not coming from a space of sincerity, then our doing just becomes chaotic.
But then you come into the whole area of trust.
Yep.
Trust that it'll all be all right in the end. Like that wonderful song that I can't sing, but my daughter sings this to me because I used to be the world's greatest warrior. Until recently, they used to call me the worry, whatever. And then they start singing, you know, that wonderful song. You know.
What song?
Okay, I'm just trying to remember. Everything will be alright. There's no need to worry.
Everything will be alright.
I woke up one morning, you know, and
Yeah.
really answers all the questions.
It really does. It really does.
And then the other thing I think that happens in my experience, that the more you worry about something, the greater the chance that you manifest it.
Totally. You go looking for it.
Well, it just appears in front of you. So
You know what?
Best thing to do is, you know, let it go. I don't want this to happen.
I think that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant that what you worry about manifests,
Yeah.
so you can see you don't even have to worry about that. It's like you think this is, like you imagine a situation that is worthy of worry, and then you bring it to your experience and you find out it's not that bad. It's almost like being worried about being homeless, and then you become homeless and you're like, this isn't so bad. I don't need to worry about this. I don't need to fear this.
Yeah.
Or you are so terrified of a relationship breakup or a transition, and then it happens and you go through it. You're like, oh, okay.
Yes, that was my first big lesson.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
But we definitely do. We do attract or create or manifest experiences that we perceivably don't want to see that we actually do. Exactly. Yeah.
There's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
Because in spiritual circles, I mean, I often hear this as well. It's like, oh, I shouldn't focus on that
Yeah.
negative thing because then I'm going to manifest that
Yeah.
thing too. It's like another thing.
Which you can see that as an opportunity. It's like, let's just, if it's happening, then let's just allow it to happen and look at it. Where it's like, okay, I'm worried about this happening. Sweet. What if it happened? Right? What's the big deal? What am I really scared of in that? It's like, deal with it before it happens, rather than running away from it, rather than not wanting to look at it. It's like, oh, you know what? A great example of that is like death, right? You can say the fundamental fear of dying. Well, let's just deal with that now. What's the big concern? What's the big worry?
Yeah, let's just die now.
Exactly. Let's just die now. And then in many ways, you find out it's what you want. Like, do you see how something that's afraid of death says, I don't ever want to die? And then imagine you live for 1,000 years like, fuck, I wish I could die. I'm done with this experience already. And so in some way or another, these things that we think we don't want to happen, if they happen, they all have their perfect place. And with the play of trust, I find that life is constantly teaching me a more authentic space of trust, like a more pure form of trust. Because human beings and trust tend to be quite egoic in its movement, where we tell other people, I'll trust you if you do what I think you should do. That's weird. Or we trust life like that. We say, okay, life, I'll trust you if you give me what I want. And that's not trust at all. Trust, more accurately, is if it's raining outside, I can trust that it's supposed to be raining. Like, if this is happening, I can trust that it's supposed to be happening. Trust is really a letting go, rather than a hoping for something.
That's a whole different ballgame. Trust. It's like another, 2, 3, 4, 500 sessions. Trust.
Oh, totally. Well, in some way or another, it's like that's the foundation of what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to a space or a presence where we can let go and just be. What is that if it's not trust? Where I can be in this moment and know that everything's well, that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's trust. And so no matter where we go in life, somehow or another, we're learning that.
No, we already are there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They're not going anywhere.
You're already there. And that's the cosmic joke. You're already there.
And I find the challenge to find the balance between trust and inertia.
Inertia.
Inertia means
Um,
okay, everything is as it should be,
Right.
so I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
yeah.
So if there is wars, if there is hunger, if there is suffering, just part of God's plan.
Yeah.
God will fix it.
But you got to see too that if all of that is part of God's plan, you are part of God's plan. So whatever your sincerity is part of God's plan.
Because my sincerity is not that hunger, that poverty, that
Well, maybe that's part of God's plan.
yeah. But I struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I struggle with that. Struggle.
Yes.
I think.
Why not just do nothing? Everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Because I feel that it's true. It's true. But maybe my ego, maybe it's my ego that no, I need to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like something the ego would say. But I think all of us as human beings, we deal with that same thing in the way that we look out into the world and we feel almost obligated to worry about something. Almost because it's the popular thing to do. And in order to fit in, you have to have
Do you
something
really
to
think
worry
so?
about.
Do you really think so?
In what way?
That we feel obligated to worry.
I do.
Do you really?
Yeah. I think all worry is, it's almost like a wanting to fit in. I'm afraid to not do something about this. I'm afraid to be rejected. I think in some way too, that's at the root of worry, like a fear of being rejected. And so we have to do something to avoid that.
Maybe the fear to not fulfill your mission is also a fear to be rejected.
Yeah.
Feel that you have not done what you should.
Yeah. And then this idea, again, it stems to the same thing. All of these things, it all comes back to like the same thing, but it's like this fear that there's a right or wrong way to go about it. And if you fundamentally believe there is a right way and a wrong way, then you have already condemned yourself.
Yeah.
You already see yourself as wrong. It's like the moment you think you can get it wrong, you're now afraid of getting it wrong.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And in that fear of getting it wrong, that's when we start to worry. We get tight, we tense up. And here's the thing, you notice, if there's no fear of getting it right or wrong, where you're just free, do you see how less violent you become? I think that's fascinating. It's like when you're no longer afraid of getting it wrong, there's like an automatic love that's allowed to flow, a kindness that's allowed to flow. And everybody who acts out violently in some way, they believe that they're wrong. They've judged themselves. Which is why I would suggest that in the beginning of the Bible, God says, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, of what you think is right or wrong. Stop trying to know what God knows. And I see that too, like when I look out into the world, the conditioned mind wants to look at things and say, this is good or bad. This should happen or this shouldn't happen. And I see inside myself that that's just all ego. Because in truth, I don't know. It's like everything that you might perceive to be a disaster is also the same opportunity that allows people to come together in love, right? If you're only looking at one side of the coin, you don't see the beauty on the other side. It's like if you could actually fix all the things that you think are wrong in the world, there would be no more love to flow. Because love is constantly flowing into these areas that seem dark. And it's because of those areas that love is allowed to flow.
Wouldn't the truly dark areas be areas that are love is being withheld from?
Yeah, like it's waiting for love to be released.
Or released or
Allowed in.
allowed in.
Yeah, very much like light. Darkness is, in a way, an absence of light, waiting to be filled by light. There's nothing wrong with the darkness. It's not inherently bad. In fact, in order for light to be light, there has to be a play of darkness. And if you got rid of darkness, there'd be nowhere for light to go. It'd be the end of everything.
And going back to the cosmic joke, or we'll say game. So would this be an area where there is darkness for us here,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can experience more of the light? Because if we take ourselves out of here, there is no darkness.
Right.
Right? So we go back to our true essence. It's just love.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to really experience more of our true essence, if we come to a playground where there's lots of dark,
Yeah.
that would help us to discern,
Mm-hmm.
using that word, the light from the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I'm trying to wrap my head around a few different concepts, which is that plays with right and wrong,
Right.
but kind of how we were talking about what is it, worry versus concern, or judgment, or worry versus concern, or judgment versus discernment.
Mm-hmm.
So, in some way, putting the right and wrong would be in the same category as worry and judgment, right?
Yeah.
But then there would be some other words that would be more constructive. So, so that in this game, I know, using my intuition, which path to walk on.
Mm-hmm.
Because there has to be, people get it wrong, there you go. People misinterpret, I suppose, wrong.
Right. Yeah, as a value thing.
Yeah, good, bad, right, and wrong. But there is some truth, I think, within that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can say a sentence and I can say it's wrong to kill someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? But really, just for me, in my essence, it doesn't feel good to hurt another living or sentient being, because I don't feel like that's my place.
Right.
Like,
And you can only say that for you.
for me, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean, because I'm in this game and I'm one of the pawns moving around,
Yeah.
right? So I guess what I'm bringing out for conversation is, what is the right and wrong? Trying to get another word, I suppose, for right and wrong, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that is some sort of rule of the game. Is
Yeah.
it not?
Well, we talked about this last time with the ones and zeros,
Yeah.
right? The simplicity of 1 and 0. Like every computer program, it's all coded on 1 and 0, but it looks complex. And I think it's the same for our humanness. You can say the 1 and 0 is good or bad. You can say the 1 or 0 is true or false. But I think that simplicity of, in my own experience, the 1 and 0 is, am I going to allow the truth? Like allow what's sincere, allow what resonates, or deny it? And for me, to deny the truth is what would be considered bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how it plays out in the morality, of being human. But we start projecting that morality on other people. And that's where we start to get in trouble, as if we could possibly know for someone else. It's like I like to look at people in the way that they unfold and see that I have no clue what life is doing with them.
Exactly.
And you can see the movement that doesn't want to do that wants to hold on to them. And for me, that's like kind of rude. It's like you want people to be your prisoner rather than releasing them to life. And if you're collecting prisoners, you can't be free.
But the dark area is interesting as well, because when I think about that, then I'm thinking about black holes, of which more and more seem to be appearing. And they suck everything in, rather than allowing things to come out.
Unless you go through it and see what's on the other side.
Exactly.
Which we can't. It's like, who really knows what's going on the other side?
Probably expelling something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe giving birth to galaxies. It's like death, we get sucked into death. It's inevitable. And then through death, it gives birth to a new experience. So maybe that's the play of black hole, Everything eventually will get swallowed by a black hole and get recycled somehow and made into something new. Who knew? But I see that there's this function or this cycle that keeps being repeated. Whether it's like the cycle of a plant comes from a seed and then dissolves back into the ground and then gets recycled and does the same thing, or seasons coming back around, or
Just day and night.
yeah, exactly. Everything is on this same cycle, this same in and out breath. And for me, that's kind of what shows me there's nothing to worry about, because that cycle's never ending. That's what allows life to be life. And the worry somehow says it could go wrong. I can't see that. Even I watch myself, there's this play of worrying about my friends, like worrying about things they're going through, only to eventually laugh. It's like, oh, that was perfect for you. And when I really investigate my worry about other people, I see it's not really about other people.
Exactly.
If anything, I see I'm worried about how they're going to see me.
Yes, because my daughter's famous words to me are, stop worrying about me, you're making it all about yourself.
Yes, that's what we do.
I can manage.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
don't make it about you.
Well, that's
Like, I don't want to be about you worrying about me worrying.
right.
Like that.
I often tell parents that you're not actually worried about your children. You're worried if you're a good enough parent. And you're kind of using your children to support your own self-idea.
Or you're worried about how much this is going to cost.
Yeah. Well, all of these problematic experiences of being human can be traced back to trying to survive the ego.
And how to transcend all this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just keep looking at it. I think for the one who's willing to look at it, that's the transcendence.
Yeah, the beginning.
Right, because I remember the life before this, so to speak, where I didn't want to see these things. It's like I still wanted to race towards the future to capture my ego. And now it's like there's such a profound willingness to look at what's actually going on. And maybe that's the transcendence. I don't know. I don't seem like myself getting to some other point in this spiritual journey where I don't have to look anymore. It's like I'll always be playing this game of watching the ego try and survive.
I think that's so healthy.
Yeah.
It's just so, what a great way of being, right?
Yeah,
Because then you're letting go of the grasping again.
exactly.
To get to that place.
Yeah. It's like you don't get rid of the ego, you just see it for what it is. And the more you see it for what it is, the less you defend it. The less you protect it, the less you want to survive it. And that naturally gives rise to a more peaceful experience of being human.
But can't we accept that we just don't know and we again and again return to this worry and to this we remember it's a joke, this is not important, it's, I'm infinite, this is just temporarily manifestation, for the infinite this is all just a play, it's just a manifestation. Then you have a flat tire, so like this, in arriving late to something, end of the world already.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it doesn't look hilarious when you're
In it.
in
Yeah. And even that's hilarious. It's like to look at how it's not hilarious kind of becomes hilarious when you can see it. And you know, those moments you don't see it, it's almost in a way you can say you're not awake. You're just not conscious of it. And all of those unconscious moments, they come and go. And I think the big difficulty is we look back and we judge ourselves for those unconscious moments, rather than just letting them be what they were. It's like you can look at all of last week, the moments where you might have been asleep, and see that in this moment, it's irrelevant. It doesn't pertain to reality at all. So why would we look back and judge them as if we got it wrong? We did not. It's just how it played out. In so many ways, I would say the more that we want to avoid falling asleep, the more tired we become. But when you can just allow the asleepness to be the asleepness when it comes, it's fine. And notice that the ego loves to judge the ego because it survives the ego.
It's very clever, isn't it?
It's so clever. So clever. You could almost say that if you're with any disturbance at all, ego's moving. And for me, that's the invitation to not try and figure out the disturbance. Just be still. It's like if there's any disturbance, you can know it's just ego. And the ego is going to try and take you on a journey to be busy. When really it's like, no, just be still. Just be still. It's like the very last thing the ego wants is for you to be still. The very last thing the ego wants is for you to forgive everything, to love everything.
helps me to imagine ego as a monster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very graphic in my way of thinking. And when I think of it as a monster, I mean, there is a friendly ego which you need for practical life, but we're talking about the other one.
The violent one.
And so maybe this is not not a good reflection of my character. But when I think that I'm denying this monster something he wants to eat from, it makes me feel good. So I stay still and I don't worry, and it shrivels up into nothing. And that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But that's not always easy to do, but that's the way I handle it when I'm confronted by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do something similar too.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, you can, because that monster of an ego, it's like it's hungry, it's looking to be fed.
It's feeding off you, like cancer feeds off sugar.
Yeah. And we feed it stories of blame.
Yeah.
That's attachment to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment to the story. You get attached to what's happening, and you lose the big picture.
Mm-hmm. It can be helpful to see nothing's happening.
Mm.
You see, here's the thing. Maybe we can illustrate it this way. The only thing that's happening is God. Just the one. That's what's true. The ego wants something else to be happening. And so it's like if you get a flat tire, what's happening? Nothing. Just God. But you see the mind, it creates all of these stories and all of these meanings. And that's the space of stillness, to see that there's actually nothing happening at all. And I love recognizing that just in my everyday life, where I start thinking there's something happening. And to be still and realize, oh shit, nothing's happening. I'm making all of this up. And that can be quite scary to see, because in that you lose who you are. Because if there's nothing happening, then guess what? Who you are isn't happening either. In this, I don't think there's anything to fix about yourself. That's definitely another ego task. Nice session. Thanks again.
Thank you.